Only two campaigns have a plausible path to the nomination: ours and Donald Trump's. Nobody else has any mathematical possibility whatsoever. Only one campaign has beaten Donald Trump over and over and over again. The choice is straightforward. Do you want a candidate who shares your values, or a candidate who has spent decades opposing your values?
Ted Cruz still says he is the candidate with the best chance to beat Donald Trump in the Republican Party. Is Ted right? Well, let's discuss that with our political panel, two gentlemen who have made their marks, so to speak. First, via Skype from Raleigh, Republican media strategist Marc Rotterman, who was a member of Ronald Reagan's epic 1980 campaign, and from Newsmax, New York, a former member of the Obama-Biden presidential transition team, Mark Alderman. Mark is currently the chairman of the Cozen O'Connor Public Strategies firm. Our thanks to you both, and I have to use both of your names for identification today. So, Marc Rotterman, let's start with you. Does Ted Cruz still have a chance to win the Republican nomination?
I think it's awful hard. He closed here late in North Carolina and came within 3 to 4 points. But he hasn't done very well in the South. I think that the map favors Trump. And frankly, I think he has a very good organization. He has very good analytics, very good data. But the message is not plain. And Trump voters are very, very loyal.
So Mark Alderman, and I know as a Democrat you have to get a kick out of watching this Republican on Republican rhetoric, but you got a couple other things going on. Sure, there is Cruz out there saying he's the alternative. You got John Kasich saying he's going to go all the way to Cleveland, and you have those establishment Republican forces out to dump Trump. If this continues, Mark Alderman, in your opinion, might that destroy the Republican Party?
JD, I think this cake is baked. I think Donald Trump is the nominee. I think Ted Cruz's problem is that there's only one Texas and he's already won it. If he fights to the convention and Kasich continues and the establishment, which is somewhere in the second or third stage of grief at this point, continues to resist, sure, we could see a chaotic convention in Cleveland, but the only result, I believe, is that Donald Trump is the nominee.
Well, let me talk to you, Mark Rotterman, about the situation with all this angst on the part of the establishment. There is Mark Alderman saying he thinks that Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. Do you agree with him on that, Mark Rotterman?
Yeah, I think that's a correct assessment, and I think the establishment needs to get over it. They need to bow to the will of the voters, JD, and they need to recognize that the blue collar is speaking out in the Republican Party, and they need to recognize that. And if they don't do that, and they do have a contested convention, then you are going to see a crack up of the Republican Party, no question about it.
Well, let's be fair and cross the aisle to talk about what's going on with the Democrats. Of course, a big night for Hillary Clinton, winning primaries in Florida, North Carolina, and Ohio, and putting even more distance between herself and Bernie Sanders. Now, Mark Alderman, I'll be very diplomatic. Hillary has some challenges confronting her, but she is winning. Are the Dems going to stick with her no matter what?
Dems are going to stick with her no matter what, JD. She has won this nomination already. Bernie's not going away. He has money, he has a message, he has the millennials, and he may stay in this thing till California on June 6th. He may win California. But Secretary Clinton is the nominee, and what she needs to do is stop fighting with Bernie. She doesn't need to. She's already won. And she needs to embrace his supporters because she'll need them in November.
We got about 2 minutes left. Mark Rotterman, we understand that another Clinton who had some fairly good national success, Hillary's husband Bill, said, listen, you got to run to the left, to pick up the support of people inclined to vote for Bernie Sanders. I'm just wondering this, Marc Rotterman, since Bernie has the socialist label, is that going to help Republicans in November, or demographically, do voters not care about the designation socialist?
Oh, I think they care about the designation socialist. And I think if she runs way far to the left, it's going to make a great contrast for free markets versus big government programs. And I think that works to the advantage, JD, of Republicans, no question about it. And if she's in real danger if she doesn't spin back to the center very quickly. I mean, he is not a viable candidate for a general election, being Bernie Sanders, and embracing his policies, I don't think works for her at all.
About 45 seconds to you, Mark Alderman, for the last word, and that is, will she make that pivot back to the center successfully, or will she be dependent on another President Clinton, Bill Clinton, to get her there?
I think she will successfully make that pivot, JD, and I agree with Mark that Bernie Sanders isn't a viable general election candidate, but neither is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is running a campaign of angry white men, and he is going to run out of angry white men before he gets to November.
Well, on that note, we might take polite exception, but we'll renew this discussion at some future date. Mark Alderman from Newsmax New York and Marc Rotterman Skyping in from Raleigh. Gentlemen, you have our thanks. So, you heard what those two Marks had to say. Do you give them passing marks? Why don't you send your comments to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments. When we come back, Johnny Moore with more on Christian persecution.